Now, right now, Senator Bernie Sanders continues to look into the feasibility of running in 2020 for the Democratic nomination. Now, that includes, of course, gauging grassroots support, watching polls, and seeing if his message is resonating and other things like that, right? Now, on that, especially on polls, well, like the establishment is already attempting to put the brakes on a Bernie 2020 run by covering polls like this. Take a look.
When we come back, Endgame and why the second time around is looking a lot tougher for Bernie Sanders.
Coming up, Endgame, brought to you by Boeing, continuing our mission to connect, protect, explore, and inspire.
All right, before I go, Cornell, you're the pollster in the bunch. I want to put up a quick straw poll that we had from Daily Kos. This is our only 2020 comment. We're going to get to their thing. And it showed here, these are sort of activist Democrats. I put this up. Here are the top 5. Bernie Sanders sits at 11. 4 years ago, Bernie Sanders had nearly 70% of these folks. What's going on here?
Well, you will also remember that Michelle Bachmann won straw polls after straw poll. A lot of what Bernie Sanders, I think, represented was the choice against Hillary Clinton in the primary. I think some of that was more a vehicle for anti-Hillary than a vehicle for pro-Bernie.
She'll say new is winning, that's for sure. All right, that's all I have for today.
Wow. Oh, man. I love how this is. Oh, this is activist Democrats at Daily Kos. Really? Really? But let me, before I dive into that, I just wanted to show that Boeing commercial right there. Or that Boeing advertisement brought to you by Boeing, representatives of little people everywhere. Look, I haven't watched cable news for a very, very long time. So, but if you're familiar, you would see commercials like that all the time. Commercials for, not only defense contractors, Boeing, Lockheed Martin, etc., but for oil companies, for natural gas. Seeing those ads, that's who backs these channels. Gee, is it any wonder why they're anti-Bernie Sanders? Huh. But anyway, so this poll from Daily Kos shows that, oh, yeah, Bernie Sanders, he's in serious trouble. He better not run, wink, wink. No, you kidding me? The Daily Kos, for one, is not progressive, right? Number 2, they've had a hard-on for hating Bernie Sanders since 2016. Marcos Melitsos, who is the founder of Daily Kos, is an avowed Bernie Sanders hater. Along with Sally Albright, sorry. I don't know about Sally Cohn, but Sally Albright, you got the rest of Donut Twitter, all these people that are avowed anti-Bernie Sanders people, right? Those guys drove all the actual progressives off that site years ago by shilling for the establishment, by shilling for Hillary Clinton, and by going against Bernie Sanders. And they're still doing it. In fact, you guys probably didn't know this, but recently, Marcos Melitsos raised $80,000 from Daily Kos, patrons, right? People on Daily Kos. And he bought $80,000 worth of roses and sent it to Nancy freaking Pelosi. Nancy Pelosi. Now, we're in the middle of a government shutdown right now, right? So, I just want to ask, why would you think that sending tens of thousands of dollars in roses to a multi-millionaire, when there are people out there without paychecks and suffering due to Trump's shutdown, would be a good freaking idea? Oh no, let's do that to celebrate Nancy Pelosi and her centrism. Get out of here. Utterly ridiculous, but it shows how out of touch the establishment and people like Marcos Melitsos, Nancy Pelosi, and even Hillary Clinton, of course, actually are. I mean, speaking of Clinton, by the way. So, oh no, the support for Bernie Sanders is all predicated on Hillary hate, and it was about Bernie Sanders and especially his policies. Oh no, we're not going to talk about policy at all. He was just a vehicle for Hillary hate. Really? How come a majority of Sanders supporters then turn around after the primary and supported Hillary Clinton. Oh, that's weird. In fact, more people who were voted for Bernie Sanders and supported Sanders during the primary voted for Hillary Clinton than people who supported Hillary Clinton in 2008 voted for Barack Obama. In fact, most people ended up who supported Hillary voting for John McCain. So, come on, man. Seriously. That's some BS. Utterly ridiculous. But here's the thing, right? Now, look. The reason that people actually support Bernie Sanders is that they saw his policies and were like, holy crap. First of all, Medicare for all. Single payer. Well, I like Medicare. Medicare's the most popular program in the country. Everybody likes Medicare. Well, now there's a politician that's saying we want to give Medicare for all. We want to give Medicare to everybody. And we want to improve it. We want to make it better. We want to make it cover more so that it's even better. And it's for everyone. And people like that. It polls at 70% of the American people, 85% among Democrats. Not only that, free college polls 70% of the American people. Living wage polls really highly among Democrats and among the American people, over 50%. And they look at those policy positions and they say, wow, there is somebody who actually wants to represent me. Here's an actual progressive. And we've never, ever seen that before. Ever seen that before. Not only that, but nobody else wanted to fight back against the banks and the multinational corporations. Nobody. If Bernie was the anti-Clinton vote and had nothing to do with policy, well then, how come Jim Webb, Lincoln Chafee, Martin O'Malley didn't split the anti-Clinton vote? They were in against her. They were in the primary. Some people were out there feeling the chafe. How come they didn't split the vote? Because it wasn't about anti-Hillary. How come it ended up being a frumpy Jewish guy from Vermont who yells a lot that ended up getting the supposed anti-Clinton vote? Or maybe it's that it's not that that's not what it was about. It's about good policy. It's about the policies. And that's why a lot of Democrats that are running are now saying that they support those same policies. But most of those same Democrats do not have the track record of supporting those policies like Bernie Sanders, which tells me that they're not interested in pushing those policies. They only use it as a talking point. But of course, they wouldn't be doing that, by the way, if Bernie Sanders hadn't made such a gigantic impact. And that is why the establishment is scared of him, because he has pushed the conversation left. And he has awakened a sleeping giant in progressives in this country that neither party was ever prepared for. That's why we're seeing hit pieces on polls and BS polls before he even announces. He hasn't even looked into this yet. Or I'm sorry, he hasn't even announced yet. But he's certainly been looking into it. And that has him very nervous. And I said BS poll. Let me show you the results of this poll, by the way, from Daily Kos. You're going to love this. Watch. Take a look. All right. There's the demographics. This is the breakdown of the people who voted in this poll. Now, again, Elizabeth Warren, number 1. Beto, number 2. Kamala Harris. Bernie Sanders, all the way down to 11. And this is why. The respondents, that you can see, are overwhelmingly male. White, affluent, male, and elderly. 65 plus. 55 to 64. Where are the young people? Where are the young people? They're vastly underrepresented. So again, you have an overabundance of white people, affluent, male, elderly. Those are the same demographics that favored Hillary Clinton and have the least support for progressives. So, whereas Sanders in poll after poll after poll does better with African Americans, Latinos, women, and working class Americans, people who are not wealthy. This poll literally represents the bro establishment. You want to talk about bros, right? Yeah, there's the bros. And they support the establishment, the bro establishment. So again, funny enough, they did pick Warren over Beto. So at least they picked someone who on policy is a little bit better than a lot of the others on that list. So let's to be fair, like I've talked about some of Warren's policies, and some of them are really good, going after Wall Street, going after corruption and greed, etc. And those ideas being part of the narrative are fantastic. And hopefully that any person that ends up winning the nomination, whether it be Sanders, whether it be anybody else, hopefully will adopt those same sorts of anti-Wall Street, pro-consumer policies. But that said, right, overall, this poll is complete BS. And to use it on your show, Chuck Todd, to prove how Bernie Sanders is finished, is obvious establishment propaganda and shows how desperate they are to do anything that they can to stop Senator Bernie Sanders. Hey guys, hopefully you enjoyed that free video. Now I'm going to have to ask you a favor. Between the demonetization and the YouTube algorithm messing around with view counts, etc., we're having a hard time adjusting to the new YouTube reality, which is where you guys come in. See, we have a Patreon, patreon.com/TYTNation, set up to help us rely on you guys, the viewers, instead of big corporate ads. Look, you know the show. You know how I'm not in favor of big corporations anyway. So help us transition away from relying on the ad model to pay the bills and sign up to be a patron, patreon.com/TYTNation. That goes a long way to help us keep the lights on. And you guys will know that you're supporting independent, progressive media.